Voyage to Arcturus, a book that I think many of you may have heard of, but I'm assuming that quite a few of you probably have not read this book because it's relatively obscure. It was published over 100 years ago, and I have never really heard anything else about author David Lindsay. He was a Scottish and English. He was raised a Calvinist. He fought in the First World War, and like I said, not much else has really ever been talked about as far as modern science fiction, other than this book, his lasting legacy. Um, this book is the weirdest out of all of the science fiction books that I've ever read. And there's some odd ones on the list. The last book that I covered on the channel, I believe, was Return from the Stars by Stanislaw Lem. And there was a lot of weird stuff in that. Nostrilia by Cordwainer Smith, super bizarre book. But those books were published, much later than this one, and had much more character-driven, new wave science fiction terminology in them, or just that kind of flavor to them. This book is entirely different. I don't know exactly what I was expecting when I picked this one up, but it's not what I thought it was. And after doing some research and after reading the book, I can honestly say that my first read through as a relatively newer reader to, vintage science fiction, I didn't get it at all. But I could see, I shouldn't say at all, I could kind of see what Lindsay was doing midway through the book, because when you start, it I think I was expecting this to take a normal uh, journey from start to finish in terms of the normal plot you see, where you have the beginning, establishing action, rising action. You've all heard this stuff. And it reaches some kind of conclusion at the end and resolution. And what I think bummed me out the most about this book, not to say it was bad, but at the end, there wasn't a resolution, which is usually conflicting with the kind of reader and the kind of stories that I enjoy. For example, I love the movie Inception, and people constantly argue about should the top at the very end of the movie, spoilers if you haven't seen it by now, I don't know, that movie's like 15 years old, so the top, starts to kind of wobble at the end, or does it? Who's to say? Other than Christopher Nolan, the writer and director of the movie. I think that those kinds of movies and those kinds of unanswered questions at the end of really well told stories are great. And I think that was interesting to me because this book left me with so many questions that were completely unanswered, especially by the ending. And so if you have read this book, comment below, but please don't give away anything. I guess that there really isn't any major spoilers that you could really give away unless you really explained a lot of context. But comment below what you thought of this book. I'm still going to talk about the book. I'm not ending the video. But I'm very curious, if you've read this book, what you thought of it, because there's a great video by Media Death Cult that I will link in the description below, that I watched after reading this book, where he kind of made me feel better about not understanding what I had just read, because at one point he's like, yeah, I didn't really know what I was reading for the majority of it. And here's where I'll kind of explain some of what happens in the novel and talk about what I think Lindsay was trying to do a little bit. So the book follows a character named Maskell. They are at a black magic seance of sorts, and this like specter, dead person spirit appears. So they achieve what they're trying to what happens at the seance. But these two shady characters show up, Crag and Nightspore, and they essentially get our main character Maskell to go with them to a Scottish observatory where some weird stuff starts happening with the gravity inside of this observatory. They go up to the top where gravity's heavier, way heavier, and they get on this torpedo of crystal, like a rocket of sorts, and they get launched through space hundreds of thousands of light years away, or maybe not that many, but light years away, where Maskell wakes up on a planet called Tormance, which orbits the star Arcturus. And he wakes up with this like organ of sorts on his chest, I think is where the first one appears. And throughout the book, you'll see several organs appear, one of them being from the chest like that. And it's sort of like, I mean, it's a very weird, but very I've never really seen it done this way, where those organs give you powers of sorts, I guess. One of them being like telepathy, one of them being like empathy, and I think the other one is like it helps you love deeper, I think. And so it's like, I don't want to get ahead of myself because it's an extremely weird book and hard book to explain. I'm not going to tell you all the meat and potatoes of the middle of the story because it would simply take too long, and it doesn't follow the same cadence as your typical science fiction novel would, or space opera of that sort. Maskell essentially has like an odyssey through this planet where he encounters different characters with different cultures and norms and different organs, and he it's weird. He kind of murders a bunch of them, and like not in the sense that you're looking at it like, oh, then we hate Maskell. He's a bad character. You're not meant to look at these characters and these circumstances purely on face value. The book is very allegorical, like maybe all allegory. Like the characters don't serve a purpose in and of themselves as characters. You're not meant to empathize with this person or that. You're not meant to be on this person's side. There's no protagonist antagonist like a typical book. There's our main character we follow, and there are other side characters and other reoccurring characters. But other than the setting and those people who are used as a vehicle to drive these conversations, the whole book is trying to have you, as the reader, through Maskell's perspective, explore different philosophies and world religions of sorts. Now, like I said, on first reading, I didn't really know that's what I was experiencing until about halfway through, when I was like, okay, this is not paying off at all. And unless this is just bad writing, which it's not, he's trying to do something deeper here. And I think that this book's going to take me a couple of readings, and it's going to be a while before I dive back into this, but doing some real deep research into maybe some of the exact philosophies and religions that Lindsay is trying to kind of like explore here, I think would give me a better payoff, because I didn't dislike the book. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand it. And I'm the kind of reader that like, I enjoy a good space opera. I enjoy some action packed, fighting in space for, as a complement to a more philosophical type of science fiction. I like the stuff that's trying to make a deeper point. This is almost like the peak of that, where the weirdness of the world and the absurdity of what is happening, it takes such a grand, like it opens up so many doors and asks so many questions that you're just kind of like trying to keep up, so to speak. And so I don't think that the average reader would enjoy this book. I in fact think most people who are just casual readers will DNF this thing. I'm glad I didn't, because not that I thought I was going to, but I just got like, I got into the book and I was like, am I missing something? And that's always my fear. I'm curious if you feel this way too. my fear, especially being kind of not a seasoned reader of this kind of genre yet, even after I don't know how many books I've read at this point on this channel, but in the last year or two, reading quite a few science fiction books, I'm still really, really young in my reading. I don't, I'm trying to continue to educate myself on the different eras of science fiction, the influences, and being young in my readership. Sorry, there's a truck outside, a big truck. It's making a lot of noise. Try not to get distracted. Um, being pretty young in my ability to read these books, understand them and their importance, I think I get fearful that it's me and it's not the book. And therefore, I have a hard time judging it and making critiques on it uh, that I feel are like justified. I usually end up just being like, "Oh, it's me. It's the book's great. It's me." And so I'm trying to work on that of like being objective as a reader of this kind of stuff because I read War of the Worlds. That book's over 100 years old. This, published in 1920, over 100 years old. These are books that have taken a long time to, like, I'm super far away from the time period in which this was written and for the audience that it was maybe perhaps intended for. So, like, I have to give myself a little bit of grace when reading things that are super, like, I'm the distance between me and the work are is quite vast. Um, Finally, the truck left. I hope the mic didn't pick that up because that was distracting. Uh, so yeah, I think this book was in a way very, very rewarding because it was very, very challenging. I got frustrated a lot, not so much to make me leave the book. I was determined to finish it. The names are cool. The world is amazing. Lindsay introduces new colors that aren't like he creates new colors that this world has. Um, and just the imagination and inventiveness that he writes with is great. The prose are not they're not as memorable as some other writers, but this book is a reference that C.S. Lewis talked about for his space trilogy, which I adore. At some point on this channel, if you're interested in that, me and Luke are going to do a rereading of the space trilogy and just discuss like we both adore that series, that trilogy. Um, this was an influence on that. Tolkien talked about it as being an influence. You know, this is a powerful work that I think has been largely forgotten. And so, if you're into that kind of really deep allegorical storytelling, and you're not trying to read about a character arc or a plot point paying off at the end, uh, I would read this book. If you're on the fence, give it some time, let this sit for a while, and if you're intrigued after a while, then maybe come back to it and give it a shot. But like, I would just hate to recommend this book to somebody and for them to be on the fence and them abandon it in the middle because they didn't get it. I was in your shoes. Stick with it. I think if you're intrigued after finishing it and a bit confused, it did its job because you'll likely revisit it or at least think about it. And there are plenty of science fiction books I've read where I don't really think about them afterwards because it was meant to be, it's between the front and the back cover, that's meant to be your experience. It's a fun space opera that doesn't leave you with a whole lot of lasting, impression of a lasting impression of just like thought-provoking questions and that kind of thing. The philosophical musings that Lindsay has in this book are just it's kind of second to none as far as science fiction goes. So if you can find yourself, this is a beautiful Ballantine adult fantasy that I found. If you can find yourself a copy of this and are interested in it, please let me know what you think of it if you read it. Tell me if you had a similar reading experience or if you understand more about it, because I wasn't able to kind of connect the dots, so to speak, of like maybe if he was being derivative of actual philosophies in the book. You know, oh, when he encounters this character and this culture, this is supposed to be reminiscent of this philosophy or religion. I didn't connect those dots one to one, but I did get these interesting like worldview explorations, and it was a very unique reading experience. I'll say that. So I don't know what number I'm on. I think this is number 23 or 24. I'm almost at the end of my 25 book challenge that I've been doing, covering all these books that I read. Been a while since I've read these books. Actually, I need to finish this series and start kind of something new, because it's been a while since I've read this. But I think the last two on my list are The Dispossessed by Le Guin, which, spoilers, is phenomenal, and I'm excited to cover that one. And then Foundation, I saved for last simply because if I wanted to keep reading the other two Foundation books in the trilogy or beyond that, I wanted it to be at the end so I could just seamlessly go from Foundation to the next one. So those are, I think, the last two books that I have on my top, I always say top 25, my 25 book challenge that I started, gosh, months and months ago when this channel began. And so once I finish those, I'll probably end the year with a sort of like, here are my top books of the year kind of video, and then start fresh in the new year. So I'm hoping I can finish those last two reviews before the end of 2025, so I can just kind of close the book on this challenge that I did. And truthfully, if you have any desire to do something like that, I think you should. It was a difficult thing being somewhat of a mood reader, but also a completionist, to, force myself to read these books in the order that I laid them out. Like this one, where I got into the middle of it and I was like, I am not feeling this book right now. But I pushed through it in order to give myself kind of this sense of like, you're doing yourself a service as far as a sci-fi reader to like read some books that you may not normally have read. You know, I don't know if I would have picked up War of the Worlds. I don't know if I would have stuck with this book, halfway through, if I hadn't have told myself, like, just do the challenge as you intended it, and it'll make you a stronger reader and a better reader. And I think it did. So all of that to say, I think this was a weird one, and I'm glad I read it. So if you're into Tolkien or C.S. Lewis at all, I think you should read this. But I'll stop blabbering. I think you get the point. It's wacky, it's wild, and it's worth your time, I think. So anyway, with that, I'll see you in the next video. Should be either, I'm hoping I don't do another haul soon, because I don't have any shelf space left. As you can see behind me, there's another shelf over there that's overflowing that I need to probably purge a little bit. So the next video should be a review, hopefully, and you'll see some more videos coming soon from Luke and I. But appreciate you guys as always for watching, and I'll catch you later. Take care.